And let me introduce you now to Miss Diane Atlee. And she is here with us. Thank you so much, and welcome to BSN Speaker Spotlight. Can you tell the people, Diane, a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope everybody can hear me okay. My name is Diane Atlee, and I like to call myself the Forgiveness for Life coach. Basically, what I do is inspire women to forgive and release what no longer serves them. And I do that by using biblical perspectives and the grace of forgiveness and releasing. And I'm just so grateful and thankful to be here, Brian. And congratulations to you for all of the work that you are putting out there.
Well, I appreciate that, Diane. And listen, I'm so glad that you are doing what you're doing. I think the whole goal of this community is to be able to just reach more people. And I think that what you're doing is really important. My first question for you is, what inspires you? Like, what really gets you out of the bed in the morning? And, maybe if you could tie in how you started doing some of this work, that would be great too, because I'm sure there's a powerful journey there.
Well, absolutely. Basically, what inspires me to do this work and how I got started was going through my own divorce, my double bankruptcies, and having to walk away from a house that I could no longer afford. And you probably have heard those stories before. Everybody has gone through either one or all three of those things themselves, but not a lot of them have forgiven themselves or forgiven the circumstances behind it. And so when I went through the journey of all of those things, by the time everything was all said and done, I had to sit with myself. And number one, I had to forgive the people who were involved in my situations. But more importantly, I had to forgive myself. And so I started a journey of forgiveness because I realized that even with everything that this world is going through, we have to learn to forgive and let things go. We can talk about how we want to help people do everything from soup to nuts. But if there's no forgiveness, if we're still holding on to past hurts and shame and all of these other things, how successful are we going to be, not just in business, but in life? And so I feel like it's very important that we forgive. And so I'm on a mission with that.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I want to dive in on that topic of
Mhm.
forgiveness for a moment, because I feel like that kind of falls into the category of many things in life that could be easier said than done. And particularly divorce. I mean, you just mentioned you went through a double bankruptcy, which I've never even heard of. There's a lot that can happen in the midst of divorce that makes it really, really hard to forgive. So I guess my question for you is, what is it? Like what's the first step in that, like, for people that are like holding on to anger, or just like people have done really, really terrible things, or if there were just massive misunderstandings? Like, what is the first step that you recommend that people take on that journey to forgiveness?
Well, definitely the first step is to look inward. We are experts when it comes to wanting to point the finger out at everybody else. And it's easier for us to do that, right? It's very simple for us to do that. But when it's time for us to point back at ourselves, we become very reluctant and we don't want to do what I call the hard work. And so that is where I come in as a coach. I help you go through what you need to go through. We can sit and talk and have the conversation. I'll give you X amount of time to talk about the other person. And then once we're done with that, that's it. Because my job is to work with you. And so accountability is very important. And so I get you to a point where we need to be accountable for the roles that we play in situations that we go through. Right. I mean, I walked away from a house that I could no longer afford, and I had the option of staying there, but there were some things along the way that led me up to that point. And I can sit here and talk about that because I realized and I held myself accountable for it. So number one is just holding yourself accountable and understanding the role that you play in the situation. And then once we can do that, I love to help my clients identify exactly what it is that they're feeling, what emotion that you're going through that is even causing you to not want to even think about forgiving. And so we explore and we dive into that as well. And once we understand what that emotion or emotions are, I help you to release it. And then we can put you on a journey, or rather continue the journey of letting go all of the other things that go with that situation.
Makes perfect sense. And I could tell that just how you're describing your process giving people a safe environment where, they can start to do that healing and be a conduit, I think is very, very important. And so thank you for sharing that. I know one thing that, so it seems like you have a focus not just on women, but Christian women. I know you talked about the divorce rate, and you have a desire to impact that. What is it, you know, maybe if a person right now is listening to this,
Mhm.
or they may know somebody, who would you say is the person that really needs to reach out to you? Like, who are the people that you absolutely, love serving, and that at what point in their journey should they actually be reaching out to you?
That person who is basically at the point where just life is not going the way that they want it to go, they can't figure out why they can't formulate relationships, and not so much romantic relationships, but just ordinary friendships with people. They're walking into a room, they're holding a lot of negative energy, they're not sleeping at night, things are just not working out in their favor. That's usually because we're holding on to things that we don't even realize that we're holding on to, and we're doing it so tightly that it's affecting our everyday lives. So that person, especially in the time and the climate that we're living in right now, that will be my ideal person. And again, we would definitely identify what it is that you're holding on to, why you feel you need to hold on to it, and more importantly, what would your life rather be like if you let that thing go?
Just kidding. So Diane, I was saying perfectly said, not realizing I was muted. But in the 30 seconds that we have left, can you let us know what is the thing that you want to be remembered for? What is ultimately what would you like to be your legacy?
I want to be remembered as the person who inspired others to live on purpose, and just to be able to forgive and let everything go that does not really go with their everyday lives. I have a motto called "It's time to flee," and flee is an acronym for forgiving, letting go, and enjoying everything that life has to offer. And I want to be known as the person that helps people to do that and never ever apologize for it.
Perfectly said. Thank you so much, Diane. And remember, if something that Diane just said struck you, if you're thinking like, "Wow, I would love to have a conversation," or somebody that needs to connect with Diane, make sure you do so. blackspeakersnetwork.com/speaker directory, and we will make sure that she gets connected to you. So, Diane, thank you so much just for sharing your wisdom with us today and your insight. And thanks for being a part of the Black Speakers Network community as well.
Thank you so much for having me.